Trump and the FCC fight to free this country from a corrupted media. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Nearly 100 years ago, Congress created what's called the equal time rule to prevent our broadcast networks from being used to advance partisan agendas. The rule, passing in 1934, was simple. You can't play favorites. If you have a Democrat on, you got to give the Republican equal time. In 1934, nobody had a TV, so this was mostly a radio rule. When TV became mainstream 20 years later, broadcast networks honored equal time, and it was at a time when the rules of journalism still existed, so the rule really wasn't even needed. Broadcast networks played by their own rules, and they dared not ever show partisanship. Broadcast news and entertainment once looked like this.
The Health, Education, and Welfare Department, which is responsible for seeing that minorities are treated fairly, has acknowledged some equal rights failings of its own.
Jackie Robinson, one of the great all-time stars of baseball of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Well, that's my stance. First thing I'll tell him, Ed, don't ever copy my stance.
A beeper went off in the audience. See if you can call my writers on that damn thing. You know you're not doing well when a guy calls for the paramedics during the monologue. Anybody remember what I was talking about?
What a different time that must have been. I didn't get to live through it. But the big three networks spawned from this era: ABC, CBS, NBC, networks that once had a clear and honest agenda. Inform and entertain the American public in an honest way. All of that is gone today. Corrupted, politicized, destroyed, our broadcast media has been captured by the same anti-American ideology that has captured Hollywood, education, and corporate America. Walter Cronkite, Johnny Carson, Ed Sullivan have been replaced by this.
The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs.
I can finally speak unvarnished truth to power and say what I really think about Donald Trump. Go yourself.
25th Amendment, it's time. It's time.
Keep your stupid thoughts in your diaper where they belong on this subject.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Donald Trump does racist things. You see, racist people do racist things.
Donald Trump is a fascist.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
Will heretofore be known as the Trump-Epstein file.
So this is more than just embarrassing for the country, right? This is one of the most real threats that our country actually faces. Our people are being heavily indoctrinated by broadcast media. Every single day, Americans wake up and are filled with globalist, corporate, liberal propaganda from network morning shows. Then millions of housewives get hammered midday with indoctrination from shows like The View. Families watch evening newscasts that are 90% negative toward conservative policy and our current president. And then late at night, talk shows that once contained no politics whatsoever now heavily push an agenda, so much so that their entertainment values are gone. Late night shows are pep rallies for Democrats these days. Broadcast networks and propaganda hosts are cashing in on 70 years of earned credibility at those networks, burning all of that hard work of decades of real journalists and honest brokers of media, and they're doing all of that to simply brainwash you so their party can win. 50 years ago, these three networks had 90% of the audience in this country. They had tremendous control of what we believed and what we thought. They still do today, not that much. But today, millions of Americans still watch these big three networks based on that earned trust and reputation, believing that if it's coming from CBS, ABC, NBC, it must be vetted. What they're saying must be true, must be accurate. We've come now to know that there's nothing further from the truth. And this week, Stephen Colbert, a late-night host whose show has done nothing but criticize conservative policy and interview left-wing fundamentalists for the past decade, was finally met with a mild repudiation to its sycophantic bookings. The network, now under new ownership, CBS, telling Colbert he had to offer equal time to political opponents of Texas State Senator James Tallarico if he were to have Tallarico on his show this week. Tallarico is running for Senate in Texas. That's the reason that equal time was required by CBS. Colbert decided to go ballistic over this and lie and over-dramatize a very reasonable demand from his bosses.
Our network's lawyers who called us directly that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on. Donald Trump's administration wants to silence anyone who says anything bad about Trump on TV because all Trump does is watch TV.
Colbert pretending this is about Trump as he lies. This is about blocking criticism of Donald Trump for 11 years. Stephen Colbert has bashed Donald Trump every single night. This isn't about Trump. This is actually bigger than Trump. This is the FCC finally becoming a legitimate agency and no longer allowing the blatant corruption of our airwaves. This is FCC Chair Brendan Carr saying no longer will we allow our broadcast media to push the ideological agenda of the left, to propagandize the country with cultural Marxism and left-leaning ideals, as they have been for a very long time. You can't blame Colbert for being enraged, though. We know his politics, and for more than a decade, he's gotten away with all of this. He's gotten to host a TV show on CBS that never should have been allowed to exist. It is frankly astounding what the FCC has allowed to be broadcast in our country over the last 20 years. It's equally outrageous what these networks have allowed on their air as well. They have a part of this too. And the behavior of their hosts that they have allowed. How is it anywhere near appropriate that George Stephanopoulos effectively runs ABC News at this point? He has been a Democrat operative in this country for 40 years. And now he basically runs the news division at ABC, a broadcast, federally regulated network. How on earth does ABC let its late-night comedy host also host fundraisers for the Democrat Party when he's not at work? That is so outrageous. The FCC has been dead for decades, and Brendan Carr is electroshocking it back to life right now, and of course he's being called a fascist for doing so. He responded today after CBS revealed that the only requirement that Colbert had, this is the best part, the only requirement Colbert had to do this interview with James Tallarico, who's running for Senate in Texas, was that he also had to invite his primary opponent on as well. You know who the primary opponent is? Jasmine Crockett. So Stephen Colbert could have Tallarico on if he had Crockett on too. That was the mandate. Take a listen.
I think yesterday was a perfect encapsulation of why the American people have more trust in gas station sushi than they do in the national news media. And this was very plainly an effort ginned up to get clicks and to raise money. And you guys ate it up like slop. What's so ironic about it is, had they gone down the path of complying with the equal time provisions here, it would have meant more airtime for more Democrats to say whatever those Democrats wanted. So again, this is part of the broader hoax that too many in the fake news media simply fell for, hook, line, and sinker.
Isn't this an amazing story? I mean, Colbert is out there screaming fascism yet again. And what was the mandate from CBS, the employer that he hates so much as they overpaid him for the last 10 years? The mandate was, oh, you can have that Democrat on, but you need to have the primary Democrat opponent on as well. And he's screaming that it's fascist CBS trying to block him from talking trash about Donald Trump, which he's been doing every single day for the last 11 years. That's how fake these people are. Benny Johnson, host of the Benny Johnson Show, joins us now. Good to see you, Benny. The FCC finally has a pair, and isn't that nice to see?
Yeah, this is an amazing story.
Yeah.
I love this story so much. So what you're forcing the communist revolutionaries to do that run the Colbert, the zombie franchise of the Colbert late night show, by the way, it's a dead man walking, okay? And they're forcing Stephen Colbert effectively to run out his contract for a couple of months. And it's a couple of painful months. And it's painful for Stephen Colbert because what's happening right now is they're exposing him for who he truly is, which is not only a propagandist, but also somebody who's actively in a revolutionary role to try and help elect Democrats.
Yes.
And if Jasmine Crockett isn't useful to the revolution, she's finding out right now that she will be thrown directly into the trash. And it doesn't matter if Stephen Colbert wears here's an article right here, Rob, that says, Stephen Colbert wears Black Lives Matter bracelet on the late night show, gives lecture about listening to black women. Isn't that amazing? But he's banning the only black woman running for Senate in Texas from his show. It's absolutely remarkable, and I just want to call on something right now, really quickly, and use just this wonderful moment on Newsmax to do so. I'm not calling for an FCC investigation. I think we're way beyond that. I'm calling for an FEC investigation. Federal Elections Commission should really look into how Stephen Colbert manipulated and hoaxed James Tallarico into the #1 fundraising position in Texas right now. Because it seems like this entire thing was a scheme that was launched by Stephen Colbert and his team in order to effort and push the guy that they think or believes could run and win.
Well, isn't that
and
just
they're sabotaging Jasmine Crockett in doing so. So Black Lives Matter clearly doesn't really matter to Stephen Colbert.
Well, and that's the juiciest part of it, is just how quickly they'll just throw her aside because they don't think she can win in Texas. But it is just amazing that that's how deep into the political process this guy that supposedly just has a late night comedy show on a broadcast network that's federally regulated, it's so corrupted. And the FCC has been so absent for so long that Stephen Colbert is just a political operator working inside of CBS, and he's been doing this for 11 years. And now this mild repudiation that comes from CBS under new ownership, you just have to have Crockett on. They didn't demand that he had Ken Paxton on. They just said, bring Crockett on, and he explodes over this.
Isn't it amazing how brutal and ruthless these communist revolutionaries always are? Exactly. Go check in with the Clintons right now. Listen, all Democrats voted to hold the Clintons in contempt. Now, I love that vote. I'm in favor of that vote. But it is a wild world where they're saying the Clintons are no longer useful to our revolution. We throw them into the wood chipper. That's what the communist revolutionists are saying. It doesn't matter. Ask Joe Biden. When you live out your usefulness to these people, you're through. You're done. They have nothing left for you. They will run you and your grandmother right over.
Well said.
And it doesn't matter if you're Jasmine Crockett, if you are at the top of the DEI pyramid. It doesn't matter if they think that you are going to cost them something. You're done. Right? All of it's just lip service. They don't believe it. Stephen Colbert, virtue signaling with his Black Lives Matter bracelet on the show, doesn't mean any of it.
Yeah, especially a state like Texas, a Senate seat in a state like Texas, way bigger than Jasmine Crockett and all the BS that they usually hawk out to us. Congressman Benny Johnson, good to see you. Thanks so much.
I'll take Congressman, man. I'll take Congressman. And also, Stephen, just a little bit of advice to Stephen really quickly. You lost a wonderful comedy opportunity because Jasmine could have used her many, many accents on The Late Show.
There you go.
It would have been hilarious.
It is. That's the best part of listening to Jasmine Crockett. Benny, good to see you. Bringing in Congressman Brandon Gill now. And Congressman, good to see you. Your reaction to this story, I want to hear you say it because you always have a way with words.
Well, it's amazing how good of a fundraiser Stephen Colbert is. Benny pointed it out, I think very, very eloquently here, is that this whole deal was a massive fundraising stunt. As you pointed out, they weren't even demanding that the Colbert Show bring on President Trump or Ken Paxton or John Cornyn or any other Republican, or Wesley Hunt or any other Republican. They were simply saying equal time for the two Democrat candidates. So this was an internecine Democrat war that Stephen Colbert wanted to put his thumb on the scale on. And what ended up happening was Tallarico was able to make a big stink out of this with Colbert's help and raise $2.5 million within 24 hours of this pseudo scandal. I mean, it's really grotesque. It shows how I think absolutely dishonest these people are, though.
And it's, you're looking at it and you're looking at Tallarico, who to me looks like a Mormon robot. And they think he's got the best shot of winning the seat. I mean, he's probably going to do better in Texas, I guess, than Jasmine Crockett will. But he is now just playing the hero in all of this. I mean, let's take a listen. If we can skip ahead here, guys, let's take a listen to Tallarico on this and how he's framing it.
I think the reason the Trump administration and their billionaire friends are trying to silence me and this movement is because they're worried that we are going to flip Texas in November of this year.
I mean, he's been running around claiming that the Trump administration is terrified of James Tallarico. I suspect that's not really what's happening here, but it's been a nice moment for him, and he raised a hell of a lot of money off it.
You know, it has, and he's another Democrat candidate that Democrat elitists prop up because they see a guy who is, you know, I think of Tallarico, he's like a straight Pete Buttigieg. He's very articulate, but not very appealing, I think, to most Americans.
Yeah.
But the Democrat elite have been propping him up. It's been entirely astroturfed, his entire campaign for the past year. And yet most people, I think, don't like him. They don't find him appealing. And whenever you dig in just a little bit more deeply, you realize how absolutely insanely leftist this guy is. This is a guy who has comments on the record referring to God as non-binary. So I think whether it's Tallarico, whether it's Jasmine Crockett, whoever it is who wins the Democrat primary, Republicans are going to win in November.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the corruption of our churches too. Every time you see a church with a pride flag on it, think James Tallarico. I mean, that's what that just reeks of to me. Are these leftist, Marxist, religious? It's so fascinating to see that lane. And again, they want to corrupt everything. They corrupt media, they corrupt big business, they corrupt Hollywood. They want to corrupt the church as well, and they're working on it very hard with guys like that. Congressman, good to have you on. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
We have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about.
All right. Hillary makes a very bold claim about her and Bill's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as Lex Wexner says he was duped by the predator. Congressman Tim Burchett responds to both those claims up next.
Will you be able to afford your golden years? Do you worry how you'll make ends meet? You may be leaving up to $100,000 unclaimed. You need this special report. How to boost your Social Security and retirement by at least $100,000 or more. Get your free copy today. You've earned the benefits. Take advantage now. See our special offer to claim your free report. Call or go online today.
Ready for relief?
I just want relief.
I needed relief.
You just want relief. Like you just want it to go away.
You need the Signal Relief Patch.
We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. Pain keeps you from doing the things that matter most. In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief.
As a surgeon, I put it on, and I can't explain why it works. I can just tell you, it does work.
Some people think this is just in my head, but I know that it works. It's working.
The Signal Relief Patch for me offered up independence.
The Signal Relief Patch for me actually means pain relief.
With a Signal Patch, I've been able to sleep, walk, and work.
Relief. That's what the Signal Patch gave me.
It was phenomenal. Why aren't more people trying this?
Join the thousands who have experienced relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Get your patch today.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's known as Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. You can learn everything about Immuno 150 by watching the 3 videos on our website. If you're interested, you can order online or call the number on the screen. Now, Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry.
The U.S. president keeps saying our military is the strongest military in the world. The world's most powerful military can sometimes receive such a slap that it can no longer stay on its feet. They keep saying we have sent warships toward Iran. Okay, of course a warship is a dangerous device, but more dangerous than that is a weapon that can send that warship deep under the sea.
So Iran's 86-year-old Ayatollah taunting the United States military, which has built up a massive presence in the Middle East in recent weeks, threatening to sink some of those many U.S. ships with thousands of U.S. personnel on board. It comes on the back of negotiations in Geneva this week. On Tuesday, J.D. Vance said that the talks went pretty well, but the Iranians are not yet willing to meet some of the president's red lines. Another U.S. official, though, tells the Times of Israel more plainly the U.S.-Iran talks this week were a nothing burger. It didn't go anywhere. So it appears that diplomacy might be about out of time. Axios reporting the Trump administration is closer to a major war in the Middle East than most Americans realize. It could begin very soon. One Trump advisor saying the boss is getting fed up. I think there is a 90% chance we see kinetic action in the next few weeks. With that, we bring in Blaine Holt, Newsmax contributor and retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General, along with Brent Sadler, retired U.S. Navy and former Navy Pentagon staffer. And good to have you both here. Blaine, let's start with you. This has been, again, this is a country that has been, one of the worst actors in the world, anti-American for decades now, since this regime went into place, stir up a lot of chaos, a lot of terror. What do you think the United States is going to do?
I think we're getting closer to operations in Iran, Rob. The delegation from Iran did what we thought they would do. They just tried to push the can down the road further. They're not going to come back for 2 weeks to let us know what they want to do. But let's get to brass tacks. Their Navy started a partial closure of the Straits of Hormuz. That's an act of war today. And we have other factors involved here. We have a burgeoning revolution underway by the Iranian people themselves with no food or water. They're going to see this through. And you have an Ayatollah that every time he hurls a threat or a mock at us, it's really for his own people to show that he's strong and in control. They're anything but. There have been explosions in Tehran and around the country from clandestine means every day for the last 2 weeks. But if they're not impressed by our array of forces, then we will take action. We just don't want to hijack this revolution. We don't want to pick their leader for them. We want to help them, and we're doing that now. But I don't think that the Ayatollah and the mullahs have any more cards to play. I think this is about them leaving power entirely.
Brent, so if it's about them leaving power, they don't want to do that. Does that mean? Are they willing to die, or will they at some point, or do you think they at some point capitulate?
It's probably a little bit of both in this regime. The hardcore ones will go to their graves fighting for it. And those that are more opportunistic and profit seeking will probably try to cut a deal or hightail it out of Iran while the getting is good. I mean, again, the best metric or the best thing to kind of see how this is going to unfold is to look at how the 1979 revolution occurred over a year. And it wasn't a unified movement. It only became one after they kicked out the Shah under immense American pressure under President Carter at the time. Yeah. A huge strategic mistake. I think it'd be a similar mistake not to provide the opportunity for the Iranian people to choose a new government, give them the space, give them the capability to actually put in place a government that's more interested in safeguarding their people and their people's interest, and one in which can live peacefully in the region, but most importantly, one that's not looking for American blood, and that the United States can be safely assured is going to be a partner, not an adversary.
Well, Blaine, we talked to Katie McFarland a lot on this show. She had an interesting perspective, about the difference between the mullahs and the people that are in the Revolutionary Guard, and how they're not as fundamental. And you think about what we did in Venezuela. We just plucked Maduro out and we said, okay, you're going to run this thing the way we want you to, or you're going to have big trouble. And they went into they accepted that. In Iran, could there be a deal brewing with the Revolutionary Guard members to say, hey, listen, this is not going to be a theocracy anymore. This is not going to be an Islamic terror state any longer. If you guys want to still have control of this country, you can, but you're going to change this government or we're going to blow you all up.
Rob, you've got it exactly right. So every day that goes by, the leverage goes more to President Trump's strategy. And what happens on the ground is the IRGC gets reminded that the mullahs are leaving one way or another, and there'll be no more money. And then you'll just be there holding the bag in front of 93 million people. So maybe you should start thinking about when and where are you going to flip? When and where are you going to fall into the arms of the people of Iran to save yourself and your families? That's happening right now. And so either the mullahs are going to understand that Scott Bessent really controls where their bank accounts are and they're going to depart, or they're not going to depart, and we're not going to hijack a revolution, but we're certainly going to put the advantage into the Iranian people's hands. And we've got the preponderance of forces. This massive buildup is to convince the IRGC and the army it's not worth it. You're better off going with the people and falling in line with them.
Brent, 30 seconds left. What do you think happens here in the next couple of weeks?
Well, number one is this is not the time to relent on any pressure, but to actually apply more personal sanctions, try to make it very hard for the Iranian regime to do business anywhere. And anyone that does business with them is also going to be suffering sanctions. Go after with the military pressure, continue to turn it up on them so that it's not going to have any indication of any relenting. This is not the time to show any sense or whiff of weakness.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Gentlemen, good to see you. Blaine Holt, Brent Sadler. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you.
Hillary makes a very bold claim about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Up next.
What are you doing? We need to save time.
Yeah,
What just happened?
I just saved time. By buying a car in Carvana, it was all online. Got pre-qualified instantly. Great terms. Save time and buy your car in Carvana.
Get the life back. Okay. Okay. He's breathing. Okay.
When I saw that Ethan was not breathing, I determined that I needed to use something to remove the obstruction from his airway.
It's very important for every household to have a life vest.
Everyone should have one in their home. Anything can happen at any moment.
I want my friends and family and people that I serve to know that we have this device to potentially save lives.
Protect your family. Go to lifevac.net.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell it all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
AI can turn your lights on.
Lights on.
And drive your car. And even write your kid's essay. But AI ain't gonna fix your broken water line or pay for the big repair bill. Having a plan from HomeServe offers real solutions. And when a covered system breaks, we'll send a qualified contractor and pay for the repair. There's nothing artificial about the peace of mind you get with a plan from HomeServe. Getting one is quite intelligent.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-844-752-2141 or visit homeserve.com.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
We have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about. My husband has said he took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. I don't recall ever meeting him.
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did. It to me is not something that is really at the heart of what this matter is about.
My husband took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. Hillary playing dumb on Epstein despite the flight logs that we've all seen and pictures like this of Slick Willie in a hot tub with a redacted female. Hanging with Maxwell and Epstein back in the day. There's a lot of pictures of Bill. Hillary barely knew them, she claimed. Well, here's Ghislaine at your daughter's wedding 15 years ago, your only child's wedding. I'm sure you had a hand in the guest list, and you probably paid for the whole thing. The Clinton sworn testimony next week is going to be very interesting. Earlier today, 88-year-old former Victoria's Secret CEO, billionaire Les Wexner, another big name in the list, testified about his relationship with Epstein to the House Oversight Committee. He got to do so from the comfort of his home in Ohio. Listed as Epstein's co-conspirator in an unredacted DOJ file, Wexner claims he's innocent, saying he was duped by a world-class con man. A person familiar with Wexner's testimony today tells us he testified he's not friends with Epstein, never saw Epstein act inappropriately around women in his presence, never did anything, never saw anybody do anything, didn't know nothing. Committee ranking member Congressman Robert Garcia saying this.
There is no single person that was more involved in providing Jeffrey Epstein with the financial support to commit his crimes than Les Wexner.
So there you go. Congressman Tim Burchett sits on the House Task Force on the declassification of federal secrets, and he joins us tonight. Sir, it's good to have you back on this topic. What did you make of the Wexner testimony? I know you did not travel for it today, and no Republican did. I want to ask you about that in a second, but let's start with Les Wexner's claim.
Oh, you're going to me. I'm sorry. I was waiting for another.
No, go ahead, Congressman. Just you.
Yeah. I think, well, obviously everybody's got their talking points, and their talking points is, I didn't know this guy. I had nothing to do with him, just like Hillary Clinton, because, you know, you wouldn't know anybody at your only daughter's wedding. That was a private, very limited affair. I think that's what they're all going to do. All these dirt bags are going to stick together like they do, and somebody's got to press some charges. I'll be happy when I see one of these dirt bags in chains, in my opinion, because I'm over it. I'm completely over it. You know, the Biden administration had this thing for 4 years, and now you couldn't even get. I remember our own Senator Marsha Blackburn when she tried to get Dick Durbin to release the flight logs, and he's like, "What are you talking about? What flight logs?" And the national media covered for it. What's the difference between then and now? Donald Trump's in the White House, and they're out to get Trump. And he's clearly said, I knew this dirtbag. There's clearly evidence to show that he called the law on Epstein. And now you got the head of Victoria's Secret, a magazine, or, you know, a group that advertises women scantily clad in underwear. And then he doesn't even know Epstein, which I just don't buy any of it. I don't buy any of it. I think they've all got the same advisors, and they're all just going to stick together like dirtbags do.
Why did Republicans not attend go to Ohio and attend this hearing, this deposition?
Well, I didn't know anything about it, actually. I'm sorry, I probably would. But the thing is, when they don't do them in Washington, again, we don't have we're catering to these dirtbags. Same with the Clintons. I don't know why we're going to go to New York to meet with them. We ought to be calling them in. If you got called in, guess what? you would go to Washington, D.C.
What do you make of the report from JobSite News that the Israeli government installed and maintained the security system at Epstein's apartment? There's a lot of theories that this guy was, an agent, that was using these women to get people into dangerous situations. You buy any of that?
The Israelis are a lot slicker than that, brother. I think he would get in these situations and he would try to sell his information to others. I think he's just a low-level tracker, and he had some high-level friends. He collected friends. I mean, who keeps 1 million emails? Basically, that's about what they've got. I mean, the file's 1 million pages that this guy, and how many criminals document their history? And this is just a very strange thing. And I think eventually I think some stuff's gonna be planted, and it's going to be so outrageous that makes the regular stuff that you and I would find repulsive just kind of like, and I think that's part of the strategy in this too.
I mean, the more we seem to read in these files and some of these emails that you see are just, it looks really, really vile, a lot of it.
It's demonic. It's demonic.
It feels like that. Are the Clintons going to get a congressional colonoscopy next week?
We always gear up for that, and I'm sure they'll take some punches, but I'm sure their attorneys will block it. I'll still believe it when I see it. He's slick. She's the brains of the operation, obviously, but they haven't gotten them yet. I just think we're putting all our eggs in one basket, and I think we're going to be disappointed. Somebody's going to say something, and there'll be a little back and forth. But I mean, it's just going to be the attorneys battling the attorneys, and the national media will cover for them because they have his entire. I mean, if you go back to Arkansas and the involvement in the cocaine traffic that was alleged and documented in movies and things like that, and if you fast forward to being in the White House and all the dealings he had with foreign nationals that the press just let go, and forget Monica Lewinsky, that's not even an issue. And then what he's done since he's left, the money that went to these charities that everybody's questioning, nobody really questions. I mean, she's the reason they're not in jail right now. And I don't think we're going to get them on anything. I honestly don't. I know everybody's, but I think they're evil, but they're very smart.
Too powerful and too smart. Yeah. Congressman, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, brother.
All right, illegals are being dumped off the welfare rolls at record pace, or they will be soon anyway. That's up next.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
You deserve high quality. You really do. At Balance of Nature, we don't cut corners. We could cut corners or extract individual vitamins and minerals rather than source whole foods. But that's not who we are. We don't isolate one specific part and sell it alone. Why? Because phytonutrients are woven into the whole plant. We are real ingredients only, always. Go to balanceofnature.com and subscribe and save today.
Every day across the globe, big business agendas go unseen by investors. Things that go against your core values and beliefs. It's time to know your investments. Abortion, alternative lifestyles, gender and identity confusion. If you believe in protecting marriage and life, children, innocence, guarding masculinity, restoring families, defending religious liberty, invest with your values. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
Hungry Root is here, and I needed it because my fridge is super empty.
It's so easy to just whip together a quick, healthy meal.
Head to hungryroot.com for healthy groceries and simple recipes. Plus, get free veggies for life.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. CNN's Abby Phillip coming to the defense, as she always does, of the Democrat. Coming to the defense this time of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's disastrous answer in Munich over the weekend on what the United States should do if Taiwan is invaded by China.
Flub for AOC, but the question is also, what happens when the president, the actual president of the United States, does very similar things on the world stage? Are we going to really pretend that the actual president of the United States has not made similar or perhaps worse flubs on the global stage? Bad answers, bad answers. What do you think should happen to Donald Trump? Hey, I'm just asking for you all to apply the same standard.
I think he makes mistakes all the time, and I crack up laughing, just like I cracked up.
Our friend John Tobacco there, by the way. Abby made one big mistake as she tried to create this parallel between AOC's idiotic answer and the president's flubs. She actually played a montage of Trump making various flubs. It's rolling right behind me here over the years, mixing up the countries of Iceland and Greenland like he did about a month ago. At one point, she had him calling the country of Namibia in Africa Nambia. Those were the kinds of mistakes that she showed of the president to try to compare them to AOC not having an answer for one of the biggest foreign policy issues that the country has right now. The problem is none of these are related to the president's understanding of major policy, right? You know, Namibia, Nambia, Greenland, Iceland, this doesn't really mean that you don't understand the job that you're doing. AOC studied for weeks for this Munich event and had no answer on what the United States should do if China invades Taiwan, which is something that the State Department, everybody's anticipating could happen at any time. Trump takes questions from a vicious media all day long, and all they have to show is, oh, he missed an I in Namibia, a country that most Americans have no idea where it is, even on a map. And most people in Washington have no idea where it is on a map either. Pretty funny. Next up, Mehdi Hasan and Jennifer Welch, two of the absolute worst, mocking Scott Jennings, the CNN Republican, for his appearance.
Scott Jennings, a man I consider to be the most loathsome man on cable news. Why does he have such an annoying face?
I think that he should be fired from his job. Of course, that's never going to happen. But I think he is such a disgrace to human beings, intelligent conversations, to the truth.
To the truth. He decimates people just like these two every single night on CNN. They have no retort. He tells the truth to a bunch of career liars like these two. And by the way, Mehdi Hasan and Jennifer Welch, two of the ugliest human beings on the planet, are mocking the face of Scott Jennings. Why would you ever, if you're Mehdi Hasan, why would you ever throw out that criticism after looking in the mirror this morning and brushing your teeth? That's the dumbest thing you could possibly say. Next up, American Olympian figure skater Amber Glenn, who had a devastating performance in the first round of the women's singles figure skating. This is a young woman that has been very critical of the United States and our policies on immigration as she arrived at the Olympics, and then she absolutely blew it in the first round. She completely choked. Here she is discussing what it means to be queer at this year's Olympics.
I've been able to get to know more queer women in the sports and just all around space of the queer community that have really made it feel like I'm accepted and comfortable in this world. Regardless of whatever results of whatever I do on the ice, that I'm able to speak about my journey and my process truthfully and inspire others to do the same.
So she's a lesbian in ice skates. What I have the question about is, why is it always such a triumph to these people to just even arrive? I don't understand why they think it's 2026, you live in the United States. As if they had to fight through 1,000 people attacking her for being a lesbian at the Olympics. I mean, she acts like she had to go through so much just to get there. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your sexuality. Nobody's asking. Nobody's cared in 50 years in this country, long before you were even born. Quit patting yourself on the back for your sexuality and get back to figure skating, which, by the way, you totally botched. And finally, a couple of funny moments from our president today. It was Black History Month at the White House. Take a listen.
Be careful. Don't fall, Ben. If you fall, that's the end. You can never recover from a fall. You know, if you can make the greatest speech ever, but if you fall, my predecessor taught me that. We were a dead country. Scott just said it. We were dead as a doornail. We had an idiot as a president. We had a man that was not a president. He was a real beauty, wasn't
he? He was on one today. He had Ben Carson up there telling him, "Don't fall. You can't recover from a fall," and joking about Biden falling many different times, up the stairs, on the stage, anywhere he could, he fell. All right, welfare programs getting cleaned up at record speed as illegals are booted off the dole. That's up next.
Whoa, 90% off? I have to purchase now. My phone!
That was a scam link.
Try this one. We installed PCmatic.
PCmatic blocked ransomware before threats can strike.
It's 100% made in America security.
Trusted by homes, businesses, governments, and now you. Stop guessing.
Start blocking. Get PCmatic.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
What's gold is new again. Pardon the pun. But considering gold has been used as currency since around 550 BC, it has been on fire the past year. I'm here with Daniel Boston, the founder of Preserve Gold. Why is gold so stable and such a good investment for many people?
Take the central bank, for example, the Federal Reserve. They print money out of thin air, and then they take that printed money to go buy hard assets like gold to protect themselves against the very risks that they're creating. So I always tell people, don't do what the big players are telling you to do. Do what they're doing themselves.
Yeah, watch what they're doing.
That's correct.
Okay. If people are interested in investing with Preserve Gold, how do they get started?
Text Newsmax to 50505 to get your free information and up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. That's right. Text Newsmax to 50505.
All right. No way you can miss it.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Welcome back. Trump administration making a major move to dump illegals off the welfare rolls. New rule proposed by DHS rescinding the 2022 Biden-era public charge regulation. It'll lead to a huge drop in illegals using government welfare programs like Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance, also known as CHIP. Recent analysis estimated the rule would cause disenrollment rates of 10, 20, or even 30%. That would be between 1.3 and 4 million illegals off the federal dole. Why a single one of them is on it is a whole other issue that we should be talking about, how ridiculous that is, but at least the process has started of removing them. According to one study, denials for green cards for the family of migrants are up 47% from last year. Massive amount of denials. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services also approving 19% fewer visa cases than last year. The wheels are in motion. Ben Ferguson hosts the Ben Ferguson Show, and he joins us now. These are the kinds of moves that you like to see if we're going to clean this country up and create some kind of sensible immigration policy.
Yeah, this is exactly what Donald Trump ran on. It's exactly what he promised. And now we're actually seeing a politician shockingly do what they said they were going to do. Like, how refreshing is that? Because as an American, how many times have we been told by a politician, hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to fight crime, it doesn't happen, or I'm going to fix education, it doesn't happen, or I'm going to secure the border, and it doesn't happen. Well, not only did Donald Trump promise securing the border, he also promised we were going to fix the broken system, and that includes this type of migration as well. He's putting Americans first. Yeah. He's putting American jobs first and saying to American families, we are on your side before anybody else. That is exactly what I would say is what a politician is supposed to do. Job well done. I hope he talks about in the State of the Union this week.
I agree with that. I want to get to one more before I let you go. Need a quick answer. But how about Emmanuel Macron at a time when they're censoring what everyone says in Europe because they don't want criticism as they destroy the continent? He's come out basically saying that the idea of free speech is BS. I mean, what a terrible look and a guy that's destroying his country, a destroyed continent.
Yeah, mini dictator 101. The part that alarmed me the most is not just the fact he said it's BS, free speech, but he then attacks social media and says we need to, in essence, get rid of it and you need to stop relying on it in France. Why would a leader say that? Because he doesn't want there to be free speech at all. He doesn't want people to be able to communicate or disagree with him or the government at all. This is what many dictators and tyrants do. So beware in France. They're about to take it all away from you.
I love that. But one thing I love is the State Department in the process of developing an online portal that'll give people in Europe the ability to see content banned by their governments. What a sick move that is.
God bless America.
I love that. That reeks of someone like Elon Musk, probably an idea he had. All right, good to see you, Ben Ferguson. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Finally, a politician reaping what they sow. A story about Oakland's mayor that you'll absolutely love. Next.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
This President's Day, Pure Talk is honoring Lincoln and Jackson by offering unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $25 a month. Meanwhile, Big Wireless is acting like it's Ben Franklin Day, charging families hundreds of dollars for the same 5G service. What's up with that? Benjamin Franklin wasn't even a president. Stop paying Big Wireless big money for the same service and hang on to your Benjamins by switching to an American wireless company that is truly unprecedented. Pure Talk.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back.
Break away to what's possible with Tremfya.
The only IL-23 blocker for Crohn's and UC to offer self-administration from the start.
With symptom relief as early as 4 weeks, remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and even 2 years.
Some had visible healing of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya.
Backed by over 15 years of clinical research. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Ready for relief?
I just want relief.
I needed relief.
You just want relief. Like you just want it to go away.
You need the Signal Relief Patch.
We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. Pain keeps you from doing the things that matter most. In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief.
As a surgeon, I put it on, and I can't explain why it works. I can just tell you, it does work.
Some people think this is just in my head, but I know that it works. It's working.
The Signal Relief Patch for me offered up independence.
The Signal Relief Patch for me actually means pain relief.
With a Signal Patch, I've been able to sleep, walk, and work.
Relief. That's what the Signal Patch gave me.
It was phenomenal. Why aren't more people trying this?
Join the thousands who have experienced relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Get your patch today.
So, here is a before of my stomach before Sonobello, and this is after.
This year, don't just lose weight, lose stubborn fat and sagging extra skin permanently at Sonobello.
I had some loose, wiggly skin, and it is no longer there thanks to Sonobello.
Our expert surgeons use micro laser technology to safely target and remove your diet-resistant fat and tighten loose skin permanently.
I wanted the results of the tummy tuck, but not the downtime. I had a 10 out of 10 experience.
We've helped over 300,000 people transform, and we're proud to be America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
In just one visit, Sonobello got rid of my love handles and my belly fat.
Do you want that flat stomach? You go get that flat stomach. Call Sonobello. Get in there for your free consultation. Do this for you.
Schedule your free, no-obligation consultation. Our flexible payment options make it easy to get started today.
Finally tonight, we often wish that our feckless, foolish politicians would be forced to feel the effects of the policies that they implement on us. So often they are shielded from that reality, but in Oakland, the mayor just got a big dose of it. Mayor Barbara Lee's car was stolen from City Hall. It was recovered in Vallejo, California. The Oakland Police Department does not have a suspect as of yet. The mayor's car was stolen. Oakland has one of the highest rates of auto theft in the country, 10,000 stolen in 2024, the kind of lunacy implemented by mayors that simply don't care. They live in mansions with security guards. They let the cities go to hell because their voter base, I guess, elects them based on that. But that didn't help this time. The mayor's car was stolen. When Trump discussed the possibility of sending the National Guard to Oakland to tamp down the crime that gets this woman elected, Mayor Lee was leading the charge, saying she wouldn't back down, defiantly protecting criminals over the idea that I guess you're just protecting African Americans, and the disgusting idea that African Americans are what, all criminals? No, they want safe communities as well. This is a woman who once demanded a $50 minimum wage, not a brain in her head. Rob Finnerty with us now. I mean, how the mayor's SUV, personal SUV, is stolen from City Hall. That has got to be one of the funniest stories.
It's poetic justice when this stuff happens. $50 minimum wage, by the way. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong with something like that? I love this. I was in Oakland last summer. I'll just say Oakland is a city that needs a lot of work. We'll say that.
That's very diplomatic.
Politically correct. Yes. Thanks, Rob. Finnerty starts now.
All right.